particular picture, I think Mr. Smith, it was a really ambitious film to do. Very ambitious film, especially for Columbia Pictures, which was really still kind of the smallest of the companies, had the least amount of money, and had really only one star, and that was my father. Had hardly any other actors or directors really under contract. So it was every time out with him, it was a big deal for Columbia because they were always betting on these pictures, and he had to deliver.
You know what I'd better do in the morning?
No, Mr. Smith. What did you better?
Oh, I think I'd better go out to Mount Vernon. It'd be sort of a fine thing to do. Just visit Washington's home before walking into the Senate for the first time. Don't you think that'd be a good idea?
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Put you right in the mood.
First of all, it was a good story. It was the kind of story that he was attracted to. Here's a hero who is met by all these, really rugged and well put together forces of evil. When he tries to stand up to them, they try to sweep him away. It takes every bit of his courage and his wit and whatever he's got inside him to overcome this, but in the end, he is able to do this. And I think that was pretty much a theme that my father looked for and liked, and it didn't matter whether he was a senator or he was, Mr. Deeds, or if he was, George Bailey or whoever he might be. But this particular picture, I think Mr. Smith attracted him on beyond that because of the political side. Remember in 1938, 39 was the beginning of the war in Europe. He saw these clouds coming, and I think he felt very strongly that this was a picture that could celebrate freedom and democracy and the things that he felt were the most important political elements of the day, and that what was happening elsewhere was just the opposite, that democracy, freedom was being taken away. In many ways, my father saw Mr. Smith as a modern-day Lincoln, and I think you've noticed that there's references to Lincoln in many of my father's other films. Lincoln was a very important hero to him. And when he first went to Washington to sort of scope out the lay of the land before he was going to go to make the film, he did this tour of the monuments, very similarly to what the character of Smith does in the beginning of the film. So my father went from one monument to another to look and see, and then at the same time be thinking about where can I put my camera, where can I, what is the best advantage to show this, and that sort of thing. The people that he saw visiting these monuments stuck in his mind. And so when he was going back to film, and he had in his mind the same imagery of these people from all different parts of the world and parts of the land who were coming to visit our capital. He had a wonderful cast, as you know, and it was a very large cast. And he was very careful about his casting, as ever. He wanted to get the very best people. He'd already done one film with Mr. Stewart. They'd done a picture called You Can't Take It With You. Then when my father was ready to do Mr. Smith, I think he only had Jimmy in mind for that, because he wanted this a naive and yet intelligent person, somebody that you could trust and you could believe, that would be very scrupulously honest, that was a boy ranger, and I think he always saw that face. Their relationship was really, built on this sort of mutual trust and respect that a really fine actor has for a really fine director, and vice versa. It was a real friendship that developed. He would find actors that he knew he could trust and he liked, and then he would keep using them. And he'd find parts for them in all his pictures. He had this feeling about actors that was just wonderful for the actor, because they knew he really loved them and he really wanted to take care of them. He wanted them to be just shine in his films. And he had no feelings about small parts, large parts. All the parts were equal to him, and he chose them with the same amount of care. He gave them the same amount of time. He was as careful with the smallest part as he was with the largest. He was careful with his extras, people in the background. He would walk out and talk to them and give each of them some sort of a story or a mission or a purpose or what they were going to be doing. Even though all they had to do was walk down the street in the background, he had told them that they were on their way to the grocery store, or they were on their way home, or they were doing this, or they had to go to the doctor's office, or they had to do that. So each one had a reason for, and so they walked at different speeds. They had different feelings about how they, and so it had this, incredibly realistic look.
Hi, Saunders.
I'm still asking myself, what is he, animal, vegetable, or mineral?
Maybe he's an oyster.
When I think of myself sitting around playing straight for that phony patriotic chatter, me carrying bibs for an instrument with little flags in his fists.
Jean Arthur was one of his most favorite actresses, I think, ever. I mean, he just, in a way, he kind of discovered her because she had been doing smaller pictures, and when he put her into Mr. Deeds, then she became pretty much of a star. And he liked using her, and he saw this as a perfect foil against Mr. Stewart.
Whose statue's that?
I wouldn't know in the daytime.
What? Well, look, the Capitol Dome. It's all lighted up. Look at it.
You better relax, Senator. You'll get yourself plumb wore out.
She's that wonderful Capra female who has a strong position in the beginning, uses deception, gets through it, finally kind of sees the light, if you will, and then urges the hero, and is really the catalyst to create the hero to go on.
Well, what do you expect me to do? An honorary stooge like me against the tailors and pains and machines and lies.
Your friend Mr. Lincoln had his tailors and pains. So did every other man who ever tried to lift his thought up off the ground. Odds against him didn't stop those men. They were fools that way. All the good that ever came into this world came from fools with faith like that. You know that, Jeff. You can't quit now. Not you.
She's the one who actually creates his filibuster and this whole sort of last act of fighting back. He's prepared to go home and go back to Montana and kick it all over and let the bad guys win and let them have Washington. And she uses the Lincoln Memorial and her own persuasion to convince him to go back and fight.
Now you're talking. Come on over to my place.
People have said many times, why don't we remake this film? You don't need to remake this film. This film is as effective today as it was in the days that it was released. You don't think about it as a period piece when you look at it. You don't think about the year being 1939 or 49 or 59 or whatever now. You think of it as a story that could happen today.
I don't care what it costs. Pay out. Come on, get moving. Get the whole state moving.
There's the whole issue of the media, which is explored in this picture, as it is also in John Doe, of the power of the media, the power of the Edward Arnold villain and his conviction that he's right and his abilities to move things around as he wants to is very, very strong. Towards the end, you really begin to think, God, this guy's going to win here. And it just takes a fantastic bit of work by Jefferson Smith, and he doesn't care when all those telegrams and papers and everything come flying in, that he knows he's right and he's going to stick to it, and eventually the rightness wins. The ending is a satisfying ending. You do want the Claude Rains character to get his comeuppance. You do want Edward Arnold's power brokering to be smashed. You do want Jefferson Smith to be vindicated, and you do want the Boy Rangers to get their camp, Frank Capra's movies have happy endings, but you have to pay for them to get them.
And you know that your fight for the lost cause is harder than for any others. Yes, you even die for them. Like a man we both knew, Mr. Payne.
It touches universal values in us, having grown up in America, having had freedom, taking it for granted, having had votes, taking all us for granted, taking our government for granted. In a way, it touches that and says, you better be careful because it can be taken away from you.